Hi everyone. So the aim of what I'm going to try and do with my videos is to give more insight into what I'm building toward. The oh fuck, I fucked up the words, man. What's going on here? Oh man, this content stuff isn't easy, because my work, I'd say for the last 6 years as a PT, I've had a huge array of amazing people that I've worked with. But I found myself in a weird area, and that area has been the gap between rehab and independence. And what I found within that gap is sometimes it's been scary. Sometimes I've had to really look over my insurance policy to ensure that I am tailoring the support to look exercise quasi and exercise niche specific, that I'm not tapping into the rehab space. In and amongst them difficult times, though, I've learned a lot about the physical aspects of how it can help with certain conditions and how it can improve ultimately the quality of an individual's life. The difficult thing, I would say, and what's encouraged more of the joint replacement stuff is, for instance, stroke, which I've worked a lot with. There's not limitations on it, but you can't time constrain the progression. And by that, I mean, stroke rehab is so focused around repetition and the body's ability to just slowly integrate into what would be its new pattern, that we can't get an individual in and say, we're going to work on this and we're going to help with, say, let's say your foot drop in this position. We're going to do these repetitive exercises. We're going to work on it and we're going to get you back by week number 8 to being able to walk comfortably, and that limp that you've got is going to be a bit less. We can't say that. So what I found a lot of the time is you'd have open-ended clients, you'd have people you're working for a heck of a long time, and it's great as a business model because it's a recurring client, but over the long term you want to see real progress so that you can sort of sit and say, we started there, we did it there, and now we're here, and now they're on their way. And that's where the joint replacement comes in. So the focus of the joint aftercare specialist is basically getting every individual post joint replacement to follow the physio exercises, which in terms of my support works in a delegated way. So the physio sets the exercises, I oversee it and work in conjunction with them. Once they've come to the end of that, then they become all mine, and I'm able to slowly advance the exercises on and then work it and sort of mesh it into the individual's overall goal. Sometimes it is very unlikely that they will get back to a level of what they previously was, but I'm a perfection striver, so it's getting them as close as they can to that. A lot of the time, though, they get, I would say, as near as one can get given the replacement. And there's just some things that are not able to be got because of how, what we'd call like contraindicatory to the area it is. And by that, I mean, by doing it, you're just going to worsen that area quicker and you'll be back into square one. So the aim of the replacement specialist is to get an individual post replacement, work through all the delegated physio exercises. Once the physio exercises have been all completed, bringing them into my world, which is then exercise progression, and then getting them to then build towards doing that independently. The benefits of that, like anything physically, and this is something that I do have to keep saying on camera, like physiologically, like the body is designed to take stress, controlled stress, of course, to manage it and then gradually develop and adapt to it. When somebody's got an ailment that sort of is, we wouldn't call debilitating, but impacting the body, it can impact the physiological state of the body. I.e., if somebody's got an autoimmune disease, there's aspects to certain physiological performance things that you wouldn't do because it will irritate and it can work against them. This is why exercise is so important and why we need to take it more serious, because the more that we learn that and then we learn how to specific and niche it to ourselves, then we become almost unstoppable in the ability to almost change the way we perform in day-to-day life. And that's what I'm trying to do with the joint replacement stuff, because a lot of the times I get individuals, they've had the replacement and they just sort of have they're just ambling away in their own lane, and you know, they still are not as functioning on an optimal level of what you'd hope, given the fact that they've just been given a new bloody joint, whether it's knee or hip. So my aim is to try and build more confidence around that, build more understanding, and also to, with the understanding thing, being more informative so that when you're communicating with your consultants and your surgeons around what's going into the op, that there's more awareness of some of the impacts that can happen at that end that affect recovery later down the line, because it's important that you're aware of that stuff, because sometimes during recovery things can arise and pop up that indicate that during that procedure there was something that wasn't done as competently as it was. And if you're not aware of it, it's like going to a mechanic and not knowing what job that was needed to be done. You know, when the car starts performing different sorts of problems come along later down the line, because of your ability to not be informed, you know, you're in a position where you're gullible and susceptible to anything. And that's where it's important to know and differentiate, because then ultimately you're in a position of control and a position to be able to make sure that you give yourself the best chance of recovery, which is what everybody wants. So that's the aim of the joint replacement specialist. Let's see.